It's almost like law that whenever there's a popular franchise, imitators will always be there to produce knockoff products to cash in, and the Sonic the Hedgehog series is absolutely no different. That's right, today we'll be diving into the seedy underbelly of Sonic merchandise, bootleg Sonic products. While I've covered certain bootlegs in the past, I've never focused an entire video on the subject until now, and I'm not just going to be talking about figures or plushes, no. In this video, I'm going to be going over as many types of bootleg Sonic merchandise as I can find. Unlicensed Sonic products come in many shapes and sizes. You can slap Sonic's face on anything and people will buy it, right? We've got figures, plushes, CDs, clothing, backpacks, and more. There's something inherently fascinating about unlicensed merchandise. Seeing knockoffs of your favorite characters and brands is always interesting, and it leads to wacky, humorous, or sometimes even cool results. When a group doesn't have to hold themselves to a licensed standards, anything's possible, and that's what makes these interesting. I'm sure a ton of you are already familiar with bootleg products, but in case you aren't, here's the rundown. A bootleg product is a piece of merchandise made in the likeness of a property without the blessings of the license holders, in hopes of tricking fans of said property into buying it, basically taking advantage of a popular series without going through the trouble of getting the license. If it's popular, there's bound to be unlicensed merchandise made of it, and let me tell ya, Sonic's got its fair share of knockoffs. Many of these have become infamous for just how bizarre they are, so it's about time I, pay tribute to them. So, with all of that said, let's talk about the world of bootleg Sonic the Hedgehog merchandise. I'd be crazy to make a video on bootleg Sonic merchandise and not start with the classics. I'm talking the granddaddies of Sonic knockoffs, the ones everyone knows and remembers oh so dearly. Let's start with one of the most famous Sonic bootlegs, this backpack. This beautiful Harry Potter Obama Sonic backpack. This image has haunted me ever since it popped up in early 2010. I remember first seeing it on an old knockoff products blog, and it has perplexed me ever since. This is a classic bootleg. You've got the stolen, incorrectly colored art, the mismatch of licenses, the random name, in this case assumingly in the likeness of Barack Obama. The fact that this thing was real and existed at some point is crazy enough, but here's the thing, I've only been able to find a single image of this. To my knowledge, no other images of it have ever shown up online. Who made this? Was it just some custom backpack shop? Why is the design so oddly specific? Why does this off-colored Sonic have a 10 on his stomach? Could they really not have been bothered to even attempt to color him correctly? What's the deal with the clip art of the flowers here? I've seen other questionable bootleg backpacks, but nothing this absurd. The origins of this thing are truly a mystery. I mean, we can assume it was made no earlier than 2008, as that's the year Barack Obama became the 44th president of the United States, which I assume is why the name is here. I don't get the connection to Harry Potter though that series is very commonly used in fake products, so it fits. The earliest posts I can find with this image have no source, but were posted in early February 2010, so the image must have appeared online sometime around then, but again, I'm not sure. There are a ton of excellent bootleg merch blogs, so chances are it was sent into one of those in early 2010 and became popular from there, though I'm not sure for certain. The thing that makes a lot of the products we'll be looking at today interesting is the mystery behind them. Why was this made? Who made it? Could we still find it today? Many bootlegs are made in very small quantities to make a quick buck, making it really hard to track down their origins years later. If you happen to know anything more regarding the history of this elusive backpack, I'd love to hear it, though I fear that may be lost to time. As for other classic bootlegs, we've got stuff like this strange-looking Sonic clock, which takes its sculpt from a promotional Sonic Money Box figure, because of course it does. There's also all of the bootleg products that have questionably Sonic-esque mascots, like this pack of ravioli, or these JoJo chips. And we all know our classic friendo Gorky, probably one of the objectively best Sonic ripoffs. I'll get more into these random Sonic art knockoffs later, but for now, let's start looking at specific examples of bootleg sets, such as figures and plushes. One category of bootleg merch that personally gets me is the type of bootleg that simply knocks off existing figure molds or plush patterns. There is nothing more soul-crushing than seeing official figures or plushes be completely obliterated by bootleggers. And in many cases, it completely ruins the legacy and value of the original piece. For example, do you recognize this set of Sonic figures? You do? Okay, let me ask you this. Do you know who made these Sonic figures? Did you know that it was a company named First 4 Figures? Well, if you didn't, don't worry. they're practically in the public domain at this point. This set of 6 minifigures were originally designed by the company First 4 Figures, and were released in 2010. At the time, they were the best set of little figurines of the classic designs of Sonic and Friends, and people loved them. So much in fact that in 2011, for the 20th anniversary, the company Jazzwares would obtain the rights to distribute these figures under their Sonic Through timeline, and through that they were released not just in the UK but in stores in America as well. They would continue to be released for years, and you can still find the original releases fairly easily today. Well, somewhere in that timeline, some bootlegger got a hold of the figures and started producing cheap knockoffs of them, and they've never looked back since. Seriously, for as long as I can remember, if you look up Sonic figure on eBay, there'll be an endless amount of listings for these guys coming from China. And at first, the fakes looked pretty alright, but they've slowly been degrading over time. First, Sonic's nose stopped being painted, then the colors started to look off, and now the paint jobs have just been completely destroyed. This is really sad because these used to be a great set of Sonic figures, and sure, the originals still exist and are still really good, but nowadays I just can't look at them without thinking about how there's probably a landfill out there full of nothing but cyan peach-nosed Sonic figures. I swear, when the heat death of the universe happens and all of mankind's history is erased, there will still be factories producing these bootlegs. Some bootleggers of these figures have even gotten crafty and released them in their own unique boxes. Take this release for example, which packages them in Sonic Mania packaging. They were pretty close to making these look alright, but they accidentally used artwork from the Sonic Stadium's Big the Cat in Sonic Mania April Fool's Day joke. And then of course we have the incredible Sonic Colors release of these. You know what? Yeah, I like these figures, but I really wish they looked more like this. Thankfully, these exist to fill that void. I guess some bootleg company out there must have saw these and thought, yeah, these are good and all, but we want our Tails figure to look like this. I guess they took the Sonic Colors branding a little too seriously. The packaging on these is amazing. We've got the Colors logo of course, but these renders are all over the place. A majority of them are from Sonic Heroes, but then we've got this Mario and Sonic 2010 render of Amy, and none of these are from Colors. Well, at least these are true to the game. If the first 4 figures set are the most faked Sonic figures, then the Popco and Global Holdings Mario figure line would be that for Mario. These figures, originally released by Banpresto in Japan, have been produced, modified, and destroyed by bootleggers for years. They've transformed the original sculpts, made new characters, and done some truly unspeakable things. One of my favorite bootleg Mario figures in this style would be this Peach figure. It already looks weird enough on its own, but this figure is actually based off of this piece of Peach fan art. These bootleggers referenced fan art while sculpting this figure. That's so weird. I mean, they got the pose right, but the face totally ruins it. Why do I bring all of this up though? Well, the fellas over at the Bootleg Mario Figure Factory must have thought, yeah, we need a Sonic figure, he needs to be a part of this. And with that, the creation of the man I affectionately refer to as Snoot Boy was made. Why? Well, he may look fine from the front, but let me tell ya, he looks legendary from the side. This guy started showing up sometime in 2017, and he comes in a box based off of the packaging of the Global Holdings release of the Mario supersized figures, but with a Sonic twist of course. All of the renders have been replaced with Sonic ones, and the Super Mario logo has been replaced with, oh come on, the logo for the fan game Sonic World? Bootleggers have this tendency to not just steal companies' IPs, but fan work as well. Personally, I'd be flattered if a bootleg company thought my fan art was good enough to include on their phony products, but still, that's almost more insulting than making a knockoff figure itself. With that said though, the box still has the Global Holdings logo, and even the official Nintendo seal. I'm sure that's genuine. I love the back of this Sonic's box, because for the Mario figures, they would show other characters you can find in the range. However, this Sonic is the only Sonic figure these bootleggers made, so the Tails and Knuckles advertised on the back sadly don't actually exist. With that said though, recently, these alternate colored Sonics have started showing up. Now you can get Snoot Boy in 4 flavors: Sonic, Shadow, Red Sonic, and Yellow Sonic. What more could a man want? The packaging for this release seems to be more of the same though, and also new to the Global Holdings Sonic World figure range is Pikachu. Yep. They went through the trouble of customizing the box to be around Sonic but not for Pokemon. So this bootleg Pikachu figure comes in a box styled after a Sonic fan game. What a world we live in. It's pretty clear that this guy's sculpt is taken from the first 4 figures Sonic, or at least it's based off it, but they did make the attempt to add the details of modern Sonic. It doesn't exactly look too good, but fear not, if Snoot Boy isn't doing it for you, a new version of the figure has started showing up. He's in a similarly styled box, but has a completely unique sculpt, and honestly, it doesn't look too bad. I kinda like the proportions he's got going on. I'd never buy it, but it's a much better effort than this guy. The box has been slightly updated too. For example, it now has new renders. And on the back, it still advertises the non-existent Tails and Knuckles, but the designers decided to give them a bit of character. Sonic says, "Hey," Tails says, "Oops," as he is known to say, and Knuckles characteristically says, "What the fuck?" Maybe he's just saying that because once again, these figures don't exist. But a Shadow variant of the Sonic sure does. You just gotta wonder, who's making this stuff? Who sculpted this Sonic? Who designed this packaging? Is it a group effort or just one guy? We'll probably never know. The Jazzwares Sonic line was one of the most influential and popular Sonic figure lines of all time, so naturally it had its fair share of ripoffs. This set of 6 fake Jazzwares-styled figures started showing up sometime in the early 2010s, and includes figures of Shadow, Tails, Knuckles, Silver, Werehog, and Sonic? Most bootleggers repaint their Sonic sculpt to make Shadow, but this time they've used Shadow to make Sonic, and for that not only did they make Shadow blue, but a translucent blue. Thankfully, these Jazzwares bootlegs didn't sell too well, and they stopped being made not too long after their production started. Well, that's what I would have said if they didn't start popping up again recently. These guys were gone for years, but oh boy are they back now. With the Sonic brand being more popular now thanks to games like Sonic Mania, Sonic bootlegs have been showing up more and more. And someone must have realized, hey, we've got these sculpts in the back, maybe we should start making them again. And they're getting the full treatment. Bootleggers have given these their own boxes, with more stolen fan art, including this one piece of Sonic with a Gorky, the green bootleg Sonic found on that pickles jar. I don't know if they intended on referencing a bootleg product on their own bootleg product, but that's way too perfect. A lot of different versions of these fake Jazzwares figures have started showing up. It almost seems like different bootleggers are making fakes of fakes at this point, and that's something truly scary. Another fake Sonic figure that has stood the test of time and just will not go away is the bootleg Sonic Nendoroid. The Nendoroid Sonic figure was released in 2012 by Good Smile Company, and is one of the coolest Sonic figures out there. Unfortunately though, Good Smile Company suffers from the infamous literally everything we make gets faked syndrome, and as such, fakes of the Sonic Nendoroid were made. Thankfully, the fake looks a lot worse than the official one, so it's pretty easy to tell if yours is fake. And Good Smile Company did re-release the Sonic figure as part of their Easy Nendoroid line. And sure, it does lack many of the accessories, but this release was never faked, so if you wanted the 100% official Sonic, there you go. In November of 2016, a LEGO Dimensions Sonic the Hedgehog level pack was released, nearly satisfying the global desire for LEGO Sonic products. And while the level pack was certainly cool, it left a lot to be desired. You're telling me you're gonna reimagine this much of Sonic's world in LEGO form, design so many characters for potential releases, and then not do anything with it? At the time of me making this video, the LEGO Dimensions pack is still the only official LEGO Sonic release, and that is a huge shame. How cool would it be to get actual LEGO Sonic sets? Sonic and his friends would be perfect for minifigure blind bags too. I could go on and on about the potential of LEGO Sonic, and while it doesn't seem like Sega or LEGO want to go forward with it at the moment, bootleggers have definitely taken notice. There is an infinite amount of unlicensed LEGO styled products you can find out there, but the most interesting ones to me are the fake minifigures. For example, there are no official LEGO Mario sets. However, the fine people over at JLB have produced this set of unofficial Mario LEGO inspired minifigure sets. We've got Mario, Luigi with a backwards L, Wario, Green Toad, Toadsworth. Now, as there are no official LEGO Mario figures to base a sculpt off of, these look pretty strange. But there is an official LEGO Sonic figure, and bootleggers have taken that sculpt and produced fake minifigures based off of it. This set here was released by the company Kopf, and includes Sonic of course, but interestingly, similar to the Sonic World figures, we've got a yellow Sonic, a red Sonic, and Shadow. Now, red and yellow Sonic, who I assume are supposed to be Knuckles and Super Sonic, are just basic recolored Sonics, but this Shadow is a pretty decent attempt. I mean, sure, he has black gloves, but he's got his chest fur, his red highlights on his eyes, a sorta streak on the top of his head. Yeah, these don't look too great, but hey, props for trying at least. These remind me of stuff like these, LEGO Sonic custom minifigures, from before the days of LEGO Dimensions. These aren't necessarily bootlegs, but I remember a ton of them were for sale on sites like eBay, and people tried to pass them off as official when they are obviously not. Some do look good, some not so much. Yeah, hopefully we just end up getting more official LEGO Sonic sets someday. I think we've covered enough figures for now, but what about fake plushes? One of the most famous Sonic plush sets is the 1997 Sonic the Fighter's UFO Catcher plush set, and it's no surprise. Being a set of 11 plushes, it's one of the most complete classic Sonic plush sets you can find. It's got characters like Beanbark and Fang in it, Metal Sonic, Super Sonic. It's a great set and lives up to the hype. What a lot of people don't know, however, is that it was bootlegged. Here's the real set, and here's the bootlegs. Wow. What, were they just vaguely told what the plushes looked like and went from there? Did they have any reference at all? Probably not, because none of these look anything like the real deal. In fact, their tush tags aren't even the same, with the bootlegs having a copyright of 1995, despite Fighters coming out in 96, and the plushes coming out in 97. There's no way anyone could ever be fooled by these. But they look so bad, they're actually pretty funny. They faked every plush in the set, except for Super Sonic. I'll just assume they couldn't find a Super Sonic to fake. It's pretty insane that fake plushes of characters like Beanbark, Fang, and Espio exist, as they're such unique plushes to the set. I guess that's kinda cool, cause even though they are unofficial, it's almost like a second plush of those guys in these designs exist. And hey, the fake Metal Sonic isn't made of that awful peeling vinyl material like the real one, so he holds up better than the real thing. However, believe it or not, that's actually not it to bootleg Fighters plushes, as a fake Fang plush much closer to the original also exists. Once again, it's pretty easy to tell if he's real or not. The bootleg one never came with a tag, the colors are off, his eyes and nose aren't plastic like on the real deal, and he's just overall a worse looking plush. I wonder why out of all the plushes to fake, they picked Fang. Did they secretly know he was going to become an underused cult character in the future? Good choice, bootleggers. A similar case of one plush in an old UFO Catcher set being faked comes in the form of this Chao plush. This supposed bootleg is based off of the Sonic Adventure Chao. Now, the details on this guy aren't totally known, but from what I've gathered, this guy started showing up all over eBay in the late 2000s. All coming from China. The plush itself is a lower quality take on the SA1 original. Gone are the plastic eyes, and it doesn't have that airbrush effect for the yellow highlights. But besides that, it does look alright. The weird thing about this plush though, is that there may actually be an official version of the Chao plush that looks suspiciously similar to the bootleg. This is the only image I can find of what appears to be a Sonic X box to retail re-release of the SA1 Chao plush. I can't make out what it says on the box, but this image was uploaded to a French collection blog. This is the only time I've ever seen anything like this, so I have nearly nothing to compare it to. It does seem to be of non-American origin though, so this may be an international re-release of the Chao plush with slight differences to make it cheaper to produce. What's weird though is yes, this would be a Sonic X re-release of the Chao plush, but the bootleg plush uses a poorly copied version of the Sonic Adventure tush tag, so I assume this is a fake of the original, while this Sonic X release is unrelated and probably has Sonic X branding on its tag. Could this Sonic X release also be fake, or just a really obscure release? It's so weird how these two look so similar, and unfortunately, the owner of the blog and the Sonic X Chao plush, who went by the name Link Loves Zelda, doesn't appear to be active anymore, so I can't ask them anything regarding it. Hopefully someday another Chao plush like this goes up for sale, as I would love to get to the bottom of this. It just goes to show that even with bootlegs, there can still be a lot of mystery. In 2003, Sonic X hype was really kicking off. The show had just premiered, and with it brought tons of merchandise. In Japan, 2 separate plush sets were made. The most popular set is the one by Sega Prize, released in UFO Catchers. This set, released in 2 waves, has characters like Cheese the Chao, Rouge the Bat, even Bokun. That's the main Sonic X plush set everyone knows. However, these were only released in arcades, so for retail, the company Sega Toys produced this smaller set of Sonic, Tails, and Knuckles plushes. For what they're worth, they're pretty good. They've got a few odd things about them, notably Knuckles having fingers and lacking details on his shoes, but hey, not a bad set. They also made this larger size Sonic that you can pose. This guy is so cool. These were released in 2003, and were kind of forgotten over the years. But around 2015, they started showing up for sale again. Huh? Sonic X was long gone. What's going on? Well, of course these new ones were fakes. How bootleggers got this old and pretty limited set of Sonic plushes is anyone's guess, but somehow they did. And since then, they have become the most faked Sonic plush set in recent years. These bootlegs are pretty much what you'd expect. The plushes are cheaper, they got simple things wrong like Sonic's eyes are always upside down, stuff like that. With that said, it's super easy to tell if your plush is fake. If the plush itself doesn't give it away, which most of these do, the bootleggers decided to rebrand these with their own company. Yes, all of the bootlegs have tush tags that read Kid Galaxy, not Sega toys. Not really fooling anyone with these. Just like the first 4 figures minifigures, these have slowly but surely gone down in quality as time progresses. In fact, some bootleggers even put their own spin on these, like this Sonic with embroidery instead of plastic eyes. However, if you thought making fakes of at the time 12-year-old plushes was weird enough, get this. In 2017, they added a new character to the lineup. Wait, what? But the set only ever had 3 characters. How'd they make a new one? Well, allow me to introduce you to the Sonic X Silver the Hedgehog plush. Based off the GE Silver plush, but modified to be styled like these old Sega Toys plushes. This is pretty mind-blowing, to be honest. These guys took a pre-existing plush, but changed it to fit in with an older plush set. What makes this even weirder though is that Silver never appeared in Sonic X. Now, of course there are all those rumors of Silver being in a mythical 4th season of Sonic X, which makes this fake really funny to me, but still. Funny how they picked Silver out of all characters to fake. There isn't a fake Kid Galaxy styled Shadow or anything. The case of the Sega Toys to Kid Galaxy plushes wasn't the first time that happened though, as there are also fakes of these older Sonic Adventure plushes made by the company Fun For All. What you're looking at here are the official ones, released in the early 2000s in the US. For well over a decade now, bootlegs of these plushes have been plentiful. They've seen many changes over the years, but they're still all based off of these original Adventure plushes. The official set contained Sonic, Tails, and Knuckles, and while Tails was commonly faked at one point, they eventually phased him out for Shadow? If a Sonic X Silver plush wasn't weird enough, here's a Sonic Adventure 1 Shadow plush. There was never an official Fun For All Shadow to my knowledge. I believe the main 3 are all they ever did. So once again, bootleggers took it upon themselves to mimic the style of another set. We see this happen all the time nowadays, especially with stuff like fake Mario plushes. Toadsworth, Toadette, Dry Bowser, Dark Bowser, all of these are styled after Sine plushes. And hey, some of them don't look half bad. In fact, a lot of these I wish were official. Oh well. Like I said, they've been making these for years, and at this point it's hard to find a real Fun For All Sonic plush as there are just so many fakes. It's crazy how long bootleg plushes can remain in production. For example, see this guy? He was first seen in 2010, but you can still find him for sale today. How could something looking like this stay in production for so long? There are just so many sets of fake Sonic plushes out there. There's no way I'd be able to cover them all in this video. There's the fakes of even more Sonic Adventure era plushes, fakes of Sonic Boom plushes, and so many more. However, another example of recent knockoff plushes are these. The history of these is pretty confusing. This is a Sonic backpack plush that was released sometime in the early 2010s, and it looks pretty good. And while this one is official, its pattern does look suspiciously similar to the Joy Palace Sonic plush. Only of course this is modified to be a backpack. Not exactly a very functional backpack, but I'm sure it meets the mark for those wanting to store things inside Sonic the Hedgehog. It was made by the company Accessory Innovations, and they would later put out ones of Tails, Knuckles, Shadow, and even a Super Sonic. Those 5 all had official releases. However, bootlegs of them have existed for a long time, and in recent years, bootleggers have taken the plush pattern, removed the backpack straps, essentially making it a worse looking Joy Palace Sonic plush, and then using that pattern as the basis for tons of variants and characters. We've got a Metallic Super Sonic, Super Shadow, Hyper Sonic. Whoa, what? That's awesome! Dark Sonic 2? From Sonic X? Man, these bootleggers know where the good stuff's at. How about Super Sonic Rose? Super Saiyan God Super Sonic? When you're dealing with fake products, anything goes. Some of these are legitimately awesome, and if I somehow saw something like a Dark Super Sonic plush at a flea market, I would at least think about buying it. Not sure if I would since, you know, it's still an illegal bootleg, but hey, at least it's a really cool one. As unfortunate as it is, sometimes bootlegs are all you're able to find. That's the case with people who live in territories where Sonic merchandise is rarely distributed. I didn't know this until recently, but there isn't a Sega of South Korea. Most of Sega's games have simply been published there, as there's no real in-house branch of Sega over there. For instance, the original Genesis Sonic games were released under Samsung. In fact, the Sega Saturn was originally released as the Samsung Saturn over there. Because of the lack of a Sega of Korea, there isn't really anyone to distribute the Sonic license, and as such there's not much merchandise to be found. That's of course where bootleggers and unlicensed products step in. Here's an image taken inside of a Korean arcade, showcasing what seem to be 5 unlicensed Sonic plushes: Sonic, Tails, Knuckles, Amy, and Shadow. Gonna be honest here, these look great, and I was convinced they were official when I first saw them. Sure, some aspects of them like the mouths, Sonic spikes, and Amy as a whole look pretty weird. I wouldn't pass up an opportunity to get them. They seem to be really hard to find though, and were probably made in very low quantities. So even though these aren't officially licensed, they still make for great collectibles. It's too bad in areas like South Korea there isn't much Sonic merchandise to buy, because here in America or Japan we get so much and are so spoiled. I appreciate this set of plushes for throwing a bone to fans less fortunate. While I obviously don't like bootlegs too much, and a majority of them are all around pretty bad, there are some that I do respect because of stuff like this. Now, Sonic the Hedgehog is a video game franchise, and there are so many bootleg Sonic games you could make a video on just those, but my channel and this video are focused on merchandise. However, since it's such a huge topic, I couldn't go without bringing up at least a few examples. I could talk about ones like Samari, Sonic & Knuckles 5, Sonic 4 on the Super Nintendo, or the gaming legend known as Prince Banana 2, but no, everyone already knows the stories behind those. Let's go for some more deep cuts. The Sonic ROM hacking community is something I don't think gets nearly enough attention. When I was younger, I used to play ROM hacks all the time. I'm talking Sonic Eraser, Sonic 2 Retro Remix, all of the many character and Sonic the Hedgehog hacks, and many, many more. The one Sonic ROM hack I see be brought up the most is Sonic Megamix, and for good reason. Now, Sonic Megamix is not a bootleg game. It was a labor of love by some really talented fans, and it should be remembered as that. However, Megamix has the distinction of being one of the first examples of bootleggers taking popular ROM hacks and slapping them onto a cartridge. That's right, some Russian pirates took some fans' hard work, threw together a decently nice looking case and cartridge, and released it onto Russian markets. The version of the game on here is the 3.0 release, the last release before it was moved over to the Sega CD. The thing that makes this release interesting to me, outside of it being one of the first bootlegged ROM hacks, is that they actually did put some effort into the packaging. It's unique, it's got a basic but custom logo, a background that I'm sure is stolen from somewhere, and art of the 3 playable characters in this build: Sonic, Shadow, and yes, Mighty the Armadillo. You can easily trace the origins of the renders of Sonic and Shadow, but where did this art of Mighty come from? This is clearly fan art, but who drew it? After doing some digging, it was found on an old Sonic fan site, Planet Sonic, on their character page for Mighty, dating back to 2004. The page features at the time info on the character, as well as some really cool fan mock-ups for what a modern style Mighty might look like, one of which being the Megamix art. It was apparently drawn for what Mighty might look like in a hypothetical Sonic Heroes 2, which sadly never happened, and thankfully in the low resolution image, you can just barely make out a signature. From that I was able to find their DeviantArt account. Ociores is their name. While the Mighty piece isn't up on their page, at least not anymore, there is this great Sonic Adventure styled Sonic drawing also from 2004, which basically confirms yes, they were the ones who unknowingly drew the Megamix Mighty art. I wonder if they know that their fan art was used on a now infamous bootleg. That's a pretty big accomplishment, I'd say. Here's one of my favorite examples of a bootleg game. No, a bootleg anything, really, because this bootleg being made spearheaded one of the most incredible discoveries in the Sonic the Hedgehog fandom. After Sonic 1's release, all eyes were on Sega. Where's Sonic the Hedgehog 2? And while it was set to be released just a little over a year after the first game, hype for Sonic 2 was insane. To capitalize on said hype, bootleggers were quick to release pirated copies of the game. Some early pirates of Sonic 2 even contain an early prototype of the game. Wait, huh? How did they get that? The story of the Sonic 2 beta and the many versions of the game is way too long to get into in this video, but in the late 90s, a man named Simon Y found a ROM dump of an early prototype of Sonic 2 on a Chinese website. People discovered that this ROM originated from bootleg copies of Sonic 2 that were floating around. How did these bootleggers acquire an early version of the game? Well, in a 2005 interview with Yuji Naka, he was questioned regarding this phenomenon. He wasn't 100% certain, but he told the interviewer that at the New York Toy Fair in 1992, a display bootleg copy of Sonic 2 was stolen. They never recovered the cartridge, but the cartridge had the exact same build that's on these bootlegs. The theory is that whoever stole this early build went on to sell it to bootleggers, or make bootlegs of it themselves. That's how huge Sonic 2 was at the time. Some person or group went to this toy fair probably with the sole intentions of stealing Sonic 2. That's insane, and makes for one of the most interesting pieces of knockoff Sonic goods you can find. Let's talk about one last bootleg game today. While they usually try to keep secret for obvious reasons, some bootleg games have companies associated with them. For example, Maconsoft, better known as YongYong, who made games like Sonic 3D Blast 5 and Sonic Adventure 7 and 8. Then of course there's Samari Team, who made Samari. One pretty legendary bootleg game company goes by the name of Sintax. Over the years, they've produced many fake games. We've got classics like Super Mario DX, Digimon Adventure, Crash Advance 4, and the one we'll be looking at today, Sonic 3 Fighter Sonic. With a name like that, you already know this game's gonna be incredible. Now, this game isn't that interesting on its own. It's a basic platformer just with a Sonic Advance skin. Most of Sintax games are simple edits of the same engine, and the gameplay of said engine isn't that remarkable. You can watch a full playthrough of the game on YouTube, so it isn't that mysterious nowadays too. However, it's good we have that playthrough, as Sintax's games are notorious for being near impossible to get cracked ROMs for. Yeah, how ironic is that? These bootleg games have better copy protection than official releases. No one's been able to successfully rip any of Sintax's Game Boy Advance games, and that's too bad because I would love to play this one. Or, well, okay, the game itself is pretty bad, but I would love to own a copy of it at least, because this would make for such a fun collection piece. I first learned about the game on Sonic Gear years ago, and it's been a joke holy grail of mine for years. It's all just so absurd. Sonic Advance assets in the game, Sonic the screensaver box art, the game's literally called Sonic 3 Fighter Sonic, like, come on! Just recently, images of a complete in-box copy were posted online, showcasing all sides of the game's box and even the manual. For years, all we had archived of the game online was the cartridge and box art, and then eventually we got that full playthrough, but now we have the full box preserved too, and man, it's all I could have ever hoped for. Check out the back of the box. What a beautiful design. We've got a psychedelic rainbow background, a 3D blast render of Sonic on this Sonic Advance styled game, and it even gives us a synopsis of the game's story. The evil genius scientist, Dr. Eggman, broke into the military base looking for information about the top secret weapon called Shadow. Wait a minute. The manual continues this with a similarly otherworldly design and stolen, poorly translated Sonic Adventure 2 write-ups. The manual even includes blank pages for you to write notes on. Not gonna lie, the box and manual are a complete mishmash of assets, but they don't look too bad. This game isn't exactly that interesting, but it's been a personal want for a long time. It's just so wacky, and that's what bootleg products are all about. I've only seen this game for sale once on eBay UK years ago, and it was just the cartridge. I unfortunately didn't buy it when I could, and now I may never be able to get it because these show up so rarely. Maybe someday I'll have the honor of owning such a goofy game. Mascot costumes have been a part of the Sonic franchise since the first game, and they've always been made for special Sonic events. Some look pretty good, some not so much. But with that said, none of the official ones even hold a candle to the ocean, nay, the vast black hole that is the bootleg Sonic mascot costume market. If you go on any sites like AliExpress, you'll find countless fake suits based off of Sonic characters, and they all look incredible. What surprises me the most is the variety of characters. You wouldn't think a bootlegger would want to make a Cream the Rabbit costume, but hey, here we are. It seems fake mascot costumes is really a huge business in of itself. There are so many of these for so many series. Do you want a fake Chicken Little costume? Boy, do I have the product for you. If you've looked into these before though, you'll notice that a good majority of the stock images for these showcase the mascots in warehouses. Come on, the costumes look scary enough. Did you really need to take a picture of it in a dilapidated, lousy, hoarded up warehouse like this? In many of them, you can even see other fake mascot suits in the background. These are honestly pretty scary to look at. A few years ago, while I was in Times Square, I had the pleasure of meeting these bootleg Mario and Luigi mascot costumes. Thankfully, images of the exact ones I'm talking about exist online. Take a look. You can imagine I just couldn't believe my eyes when I saw this man. I suppose all of these do serve a good purpose though. Like if your kid really wants a Sonic birthday party or something, this could be useful for something like that. But then again, maybe not because a ton of these look so terrifying. Let's take a step back and talk more about bootlegs like a Gorky. One of the most common forms of bootlegs are those who just take artwork, probably stolen from Google image results, and slap them onto their products with little thought. For example, take all of these fake birthday supplies and gifts. Sure, if you're a parent and have a kid who's just the biggest Sonic fan, maybe you do want to get them a totally situational, literally good for just their one birthday shirt with Sonic on it, but you can do better than this. You may be wondering though, aren't these just customs? Well, I guess some of them are, but they're still using completely unedited artwork and others' work for profit. But it can sometimes be hard to tell when something is a custom and not a bootleg. People making custom figures, making prints of their original art they drew, custom plush makers, all of you guys are awesome. Keep making the great stuff you make, but if you're producing a ton of something that has next to no originality to it and simply rips off existing content, that's bootleg merchandise. I could go on and on about cheap artwork ripoffs. How about this incredible shirt? How about this firecracker with Sonic on it? Why is this even a thing? There's so much of this stuff out there. I'd honestly love to someday be able to explore markets with stuff like this in it, cause there's so much fake stuff for so many licenses. It'd be such an experience looking through it all. I don't live near many places that stock stuff like this, but I'd love to see this stuff someday in person. I wonder if some of you watching live in areas where you can just go to the store and find stuff like this. I'd love to hear any experiences you guys have had with bootleg stuff. Now, when ordering stuff online, how can you make sure your item is legit? This can be tricky, but it's generally agreed that if something is coming from China, it has a good chance to be fake. That stigma makes sense, as so much fake stuff comes out of China, but that isn't always the case. Yes, a ton of bootlegs are made in China, but bootlegs are made elsewhere too, often made in places like Mexico, Brazil, Taiwan, heck, even the US. No place is safe. And of course a lot of bootlegs would be coming from China. That's where a ton of official merchandise is made. In fact, since the factories that produce the official products are often in China, there have been many cases of straight stock from the factories slipping out, and official products being sold by sketchy factory sellers in China. There's a big difference between a fake bootleg and what's simply factory stock. Take these Resource Sonic Adventure Series 2 figures for example. Are they real? Are they fake? Well, we don't know for certain. In the mid to late 2000s, it was commonly believed that the second series of Resource Sonic figures were bootlegged. Why? Because a ton of them were showing up online coming from China. However, I've extensively compared the alleged fake items with the official releases, and as far as I can tell, they're identical. I don't think Resource's figures were ever bootlegged. Here's what I believe these are. The company Resource went under in the year 2000, in the middle of production of the second series of Sonic Adventure figures. That must have meant that a ton of stock that was produced couldn't be sold. Well, what are factories to do with the leftover figures? Sell them on the gray market, of course. And that's why so many of these started showing up from China. They're the same as the official figures, just taken off the production line before they could be boxed up and shipped off to stores. Not everything that comes from China is automatically fake. In my time collecting merchandise, I've been fortunate enough to find a ton of samples and prototypes, and nearly all of them have come from sites like Taobao, directly from China. My Jazzwares Big Plush came from China, Kelly Toy Werehog did too, and so many more. A lot of this comes down to context and knowing what's real, what's fake, what's been bootlegged, and what hasn't been. Stuff like that. And there you have it, an overview of bootleg Sonic merchandise. For a franchise as huge as Sonic, it's no surprise there's as much fake stuff as there is. There's still so much more out there I didn't even talk about. And with that said, Sonic has nothing on the amount of bootleg stuff Mario, or dare I say Pokemon, has. Bootleg stuff has been fascinating to me ever since I got into collecting. I don't collect it myself, as a majority of these items are worthless trash that are likely unsafe, but they're so interesting. There's so many ways you could look at a bootleg product. You could easily laugh at them and write them off as hilariously off-model products with no purpose, but if I'm being honest, a lot of these fakes have some really deep histories. Stuff like the Fun For All bootleg plushes have existed for years, and at this point I'm sure unknowing kids grew up with some of these. There's people out there whose childhood Sonic plush was this, and in the future, people will probably have great memories of stuff like the Kid Galaxy Silver plush. And of course, in some territories, stuff like this is all they have. Maybe not much Sonic stuff is distributed to their countries, so this is all they've got, like those Korean arcade plushes I mentioned earlier. But at the end of the day, you should always support the real deal whenever possible. Sure, bootlegs may be cheaper than genuine goods, but you get what you paid for. And if you can't afford the real thing, I would still recommend not supporting bootlegs, even if they do look really funny sometimes. And you may be wondering, why doesn't Sega or any company that's being ripped off try to step in and stop these? Well, at this point, you can't. You really cannot stop bootleggers. Once a product has been faked and has gotten out there, so many different sellers buy up stock of them. So many factories produce different different bootlegs. If you take one bootleg down, there will be 10 to take its place. The bootleg industry is much deeper than many people realize. It's not like there's a single bootleg Sonic factory out there Sega could walk up to and take down. It's a hive mind of individual producers, designers, and sellers. This video has gone over a ton of fake Sonic merchandise, but there's still a lot more out there. There's probably so much that hasn't even been documented online too. However, a ton of it has been documented online, thanks to the likes of the website Sonic Gear. Their how to avoid bootleg Sonic merchandise section is entirely what inspired me to make this video. It's one of the best pages on the site. I highly recommend you check it out if any of this interested you. While it's true these bootlegs are unofficial and really only serve to harm the Sonic brand in the long run, you can't argue that bootlegs are an important aspect of merchandise that at the very least are worth noting.